All right, before we move on to our Donovan Mitchell conversation, we got breaking news this morning. More breaking news this morning. Boston Celtics guard Jaylen Brown.
This is insane.
Just agreed to a 5-year, $304 million extension, the richest contract ever signed in the NBA. Thoughts?
I gave him. This is insane. I like Jaylen Brown a lot. $300 million for Jaylen Brown is bonkers.
I agree.
But this is where contract, like we talked about it a couple weeks ago in free agency, this is where contracts are going. Wait a couple years. Like, they're all going to look like this. But this feels totally insane.
$304 for Jaylen
Brown.
Yeah. Is Jaylen Brown a top 20 guy in the NBA?
Probably not.
If he is, he's in that
18
to 22 range.
Yep.
And he was getting the ball. And for a guy who can't really dribble like that, he's giving the ball and take it from him. I'm like, Jaylen Brown, what are you doing?
It is now, two things to keep in mind. The salary cap goes up 10% every year. So $30.4 million or whatever it's more than 30, 60 million, whatever, looks like an unsurmountable number in today's cap. When that kicks in next year, 60 million is going to be a much smaller percentage of the cap. However, that's effing absurd.
Yeah.
That is a guy who is, in my opinion, not capable of making a first-team All-NBA team. I don't think he'll ever be a top
That's a good point.
1, 2, frankly, 3, 4, 5 best forward in the league. Now, he made second-team All-NBA this year, but that's because Kevin Durant didn't play enough games. LeBron didn't play enough games. Guys rested. He's not top 5 at his position. How are you going to pay a guy $300 million if he's not even top 5 at his own position?
And
I get you have to. The Celtics don't have a choice.
This is how you retain your core.
but
That makes no sense. I mean, I know you have to, but, like, that's a terrible
But
deal.
don't him and Tatum play the same position? They just be acting like they don't.
Like, yes, and they're both wings.
Basketball's positionless anymore.
So
I'd take 5 of those dudes, honestly.
I mean,
but not at $60 million.
Yeah. Not that's and okay. Well, what is Tatum getting in?
So Tatum is eligible for a supermax next year.
So
he's going to get 310. He's going to get more than Brown, which is why the issue now for the Celtics is you're paying 2 guys at minimum $60 million and $140 million cap room. So 45% of your salary is now tied up to 2. And Kristaps Porzingis is getting 20-something million. So now next year, heading to next season when Tatum signs his supermax, you have Jaylen Brown at $60 million, Tatum at 62, 63-ish, and you have Porzingis making 20-something, and your salary cap's what, 150-something next year?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to blow through the second.
They're going to blow through the second apron with like 4 guys.
Yeah. I'll be. Has anyone paid the second apron? I think they've all stayed out of it, have they not? Or where's
it goes in this year, so.
No, I know, but Golden State. I'm trying to think where Golden State is. I think when they moved
Poole, they got under it.
They got under
it, yeah.
So I'm curious to see, like, Boston may be the first team to pay the second apron. Yeah. I don't see how they get out of it now at this point.
I mean, and then I know you got to retain your guys, and they didn't have any other options, but it's not like they paid dividends. It's not like Jaylen Brown and Tatum have gotten championships. Now, they've gotten close, right? They've been to the finals. Last year, everyone would agree it was kind of a disappointment. So even when you give me Porzingis, you give me Jaylen Brown and Tatum, I don't know if those 3 guys are even in the ballpark of winning the championship. On paper, it look cool, but what happens if Porzingis is hurt?
I mean, I didn't like that trade. We talked about that. I thought they were better off with Marcus Smart. That may be the minority opinion. I know Mikey was saying,
I disagree, but
he slipped defensively. But they have an abundance of the most important position, which is wings. You've got to have wings. It's what the Cavs have gone up against for a number of years, not having wings. Boston has them in spades. The Thunder has. That's how they played. That's what the Nets do now with just wings. So I think they have the right formula, but you're right. Like, it hasn't translated. That's why it's so hard to win in the NBA. I talked about this before. The Thunder drafted 3 MVPs and didn't win a championship.
Same squad, crazy.
3 MVPs on the same team.
1 final.
1 final, no championships. Yeah. That's how hard it is to win in the NBA.
That's crazy. That is ridiculous. You know, we'll see how it plays out. Maybe they're looking at it like from this standpoint. Look, people expect Philadelphia to fall off. I think people expect Philly to take that kind of drop a little bit. And it makes it even more difficult for teams like the Cavs, right? Because the Cavs are like, okay, well, Philly's going to take a little step back. We don't even know if we never really believed in the Hawks. maybe we caught the Knicks when we were younger and didn't understand what type of time it was. We think we got better talent than they do. So now it's like, okay, we got Donovan Mitchell. How do we project where we could be next year? Because next year's the pivotal year. And they're thinking, like, maybe if we keep them around, maybe we can get out of the East and try to make some noise in the Eastern Conference that's moving and shaking.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because yesterday, Tim Bontemps on a podcast, The Hoop Collective with Brian Windhorst, was kind of asked about Donovan Mitchell. And do we want to play the clip from said podcast of Tim Bontemps speculating on the future of the Cavs superstar shooting guard?
Yeah, let's do that right now, then we can talk about it. Steve, take it. This is a minute, 27 seconds long, by the way.
But this is kind of a make or break year for the Cavs. Do you think he signs an extension right now?
I think there's
Not
no
this
chance
year.
he signs. I don't think there's any chance he signs an extension there ever. And if it was up to me, I would trade Donovan Mitchell today because I don't think the Cavs are getting as far as they hope to next year. And I don't think he's going to extend. And I think they'll get a lot more for him with 2 summers left than they will with 1 summer left. Now, I also am fully aware that's not what they're going to do. And I understand why they're not going to do it because you perfectly laid out, I think, McMahon, what their thought process was making the deal and where they sit. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. But me personally, looking at it, I think it's more likely they lose in the first round than they win 2 rounds. And in that scenario, I don't really see any world where Donovan Mitchell wants to stay there after next season. And to me, I'd be looking at it now and saying, all right, well, if we flip him for a bunch of stuff now, we can start to figure out exactly the kind of team we want to have around these 3 guys and put ourselves in as good a position as possible 3 or 4 years from now to contend. Now, I understand anybody thinking otherwise.
Fall when Donovan doesn't extend. And I'm sure he'll get asked about it at media day, and I'm sure he'll have a very good answer and maybe even a hedge answer. And that'll be interesting, but he knows how to handle these situations before. He handled it before in Utah. I don't expect him to make any proclamation. I expect him to kick the ball down the field.
So, Jason, those are your guys. I know you know Wendy very well. You told us before that you've used Tim Bontemps' bathroom before, so you're very familiar with Tim.
No, I did not use his bathroom, but continue.
So you were the first one out of anyone, not just here, but in the country, to even reference or make light of the fact that Donovan Mitchell may not be interested in staying here long term. So when you hear Windhorst and Bontemps talk about that, does anything they said surprise you?
No, nothing they said surprises me, but I might surprise you by saying I disagree with Tim.
I do too.
And I don't trade him now. Now, where Tim's bringing this from, like I had a pretty prominent NBA agent after the season say the exact same thing: trade Donovan now. But if you trade him now, you're admitting a mistake. You're admitting that you made a mistake and trade him from the first place, and I don't think you're at that point yet. Like the part that it keeps getting missed in what I wrote and what I've said a million times is this is a really, really, really big year for the Cavs. They're not out of time. It's not too late. Like everyone has taken what I wrote, what I'm saying, as like Donovan is leaving and he's gone. Now, I tend to think that's probably how it's going to end, but there's still time to turn this. You have this season. I've said it 100 times. This is a massively important season for the Cavs in terms of the Donovan conversation and his future. You have the opportunity. I would put Boston and Milwaukee ahead of them, and that's it in the East. I said the same thing last year, and Philly wound up being better than the Cavs. But Boston and Milwaukee are ahead of them. After that, it's pretty open in the East. So there's no reason that Evan Mobley can't take a leap next year and demonstrate growth. There's no reason that this team can't continue to grow. It's a young team with a high ceiling. I disagree on the fact that they're more likely to lose 2 rounds, lose in the first. They're more likely to lose in the first round than win 2. I disagree with that. I don't know why we would cap that right now. They were the most efficient shooting team probably of all the top teams. They addressed that. They've got shooting now. They've addressed their biggest need at the 3 with Max Strus. He's not a superstar. They don't need him to be a superstar. Yang in the corner, like that's exactly what they needed, a corner shooter. So let's let this play out. Let's give this year and see how it goes. It may ultimately come down to that's exactly how this goes, and they're going to have to trade him next year. I think it's rash to do it now. We talked about it before, but the timing may not have been perfect on Donovan. Like I would rather them add him to this team now with an extra year on the contract, but that's not how this goes. Like you don't know when these guys are going to become available. You got to jump when they when you have the opportunity. Would you rather have Donovan Mitchell or Bradley Beal this summer? Now, the price on Beal would have been lower, but I would take Donovan Mitchell on this team before Bradley Beal.
100 of 100.
Right? And that was the big name that was available this summer was Bradley Beal. I'd rather have Donovan Mitchell. And, yeah, like they've mortgaged their future to get him. And they're going to have a lot of hard conversations if this year doesn't go right. But we still have this season, and there's a lot at stake for this season. But there's plenty of time here. If this team reaches the conference finals, if the arrow is pointing up, you very likely may be able to have a conversation with Donovan at that point and extend him at that point where he's all in for another couple of years. But there's just a lot right on this year. That's the only point I try to make in this whole thing. You may get to the point after this season that you have to trade Donovan. I think that's probably how it's going to go, but there's still a lot of time to change that.
Let's start backwards and move our way back. I think, to me, I go back a couple of years later, and this just hit me while they were talking about it, and you were talking, and I was just going through my mind. I mean, I go back to Toronto a couple of years ago when they had Kawhi Leonard, right? Mm-hmm. They make the deal for Kawhi Leonard. They know he's going to be I think it was, they know he's going to be
last year.
Last year.
It's a 1 year rental.
1 year rental, and they go back, they go and win the championship, right? You got Kyle Lowry. They just played lights out. He looked like he fit. They loved him there. The crowd was exciting. Everything was beautiful. It was just like, if you want to talk about all the things that a player should want, right? They look like they have stability. They look like they got a great fan base. They look like they're a winner. You just beat the Warriors with KD. Granted, they were injured. And guess what? He still left.
Yeah.
To me, that set a precedent. Even if Donovan Mitchell and the Cavs win a championship next year, that'd be great. Love it. It's even more likely that he's going to leave.
It's true.
Yeah.
Because he has a ring.
He's got the ring.
He can say he did what he
I
came
did
to
what
do.
I came to do. Now I'm going to turn.
He didn't come here. They sent him here.
Like,
he had no choice in the matter.
at that point in time, you already reached the mountain, and now he's Kyrie Irving. Not to a point. Yeah. Like, he's not going to do it like Kyrie did it. But we hear Wendy say it. He says, like, look, man, his dad works in the front office. He knows how to talk in front of the media. He's not going to give you anything. He's not going to give you a rock the boat and make you think anything. He is very good at his job in terms of he does it in a way where he doesn't alienate fans. And he can also always say, look who I am as a player. They traded me here. I came and I gave my best. We won a championship. Now I would like to go do something for myself that I've always wanted to do.
And you know what? If he wins a championship,
Good.
good, buddy. We'll help you pack, and not in a bad way, but in a thank you.
No one is looking at Toronto like they made a mistake trading DeMar DeRozan
That's
for
exactly right.
Kawhi Leonard. And we have to, as a collective society, there is no loyalty in sports. Stop pretending to believe that there's any loyalty from player to team.
That's right.
Or team to player. Look at what's happening in Portland right now. Dame Lillard's been in Portland for 11 years. He's given everything to that franchise. His heart and soul. He's been through a ton of ups and downs. More downs than ups. They've went to the Western Conference Finals once. He just re-signed his second 2-year max extension. Then 3 months later, he's like, hey, actually, I don't want to be here. I want to go to Miami. Not like, hey, this just didn't work. No, I want to go to this one specific team that doesn't have the requisite assets to actually acquire me, but I don't really care. You do right by me because that's what I want. Stop pretending and lying to yourself that just because a player says he loves a certain city or says he's happy to be here, that he's actually happy to be there.
Right.
That could change like this for any number of circumstances. Now back to the Cavs and Mitchell in particular. All you can do as a general manager and a team, if you don't have a guy like LeBron, and the Cavs don't have a guy like LeBron.
Correct.
I'm just using him as an example. It could be a Giannis, it could be a Jokic. Is you want to be in the conversation. Do you have a roster that on the opening night of the season, you are in the conversation to be part of that championship conversation? You want to be in line to get into that championship club. And I look at this Cavs roster, and this is absolutely a roster with Donovan Mitchell, with the addition of Strus, Niang, the other guys. They're the only team in the league with 4 All-Stars under the age of 26. The only team in the league.
Yeah.
They're in that championship conversation. To Tim's point, or against Tim's point, there's a 0.0% chance you trade your best player when you are in that conversation, unless the team's willing to give you the grandest of all hauls in the history of NBA trades. And with the new second tax haven, which we just talked about with Jaylen Brown, I don't know how in a million years a team's ever going to give up that many assets for one single player again. It's not financially viable, and you're giving up too many assets that you need to build out the back end of your roster. So the hell no. I'm not trading Donovan Mitchell right now, and I don't think the difference in trading now versus next summer, if that's what it comes to, is that drastically difference in the gauge of what you're getting back. Is it exactly the same? No, you probably get a little more now, or you definitely would get a little more now.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're looking at a 50% drop-off in the return on investment for what you get for Donovan Mitchell trading him tomorrow as opposed to next summer.
The only thing I disagree with you on is I think you're going to see these trades happen more and more and more and more and more and more.
But to the return that you got for a Kevin Durant or for a Donovan Mitchell in the first place.
But here's why, because I think you're going and like I'm going to get people are going to be furious when I say this, but even if Donovan signs the extension, the conversation still doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Because of what you just said about Dame. Like he signs it and then they trade. Donovan signed in Utah. They traded him a year later. So the norm now has like I think we talked about
Jaylen Brown's
this.
not going to be in Boston for 5.
Probably not. Probably
chances
not.
are more than a 50% chance he does not play his 5-year extension in Boston.
So I think we talked about this
Woj.
on the show.
We did.
About the cap space thing. Cap space isn't worth what it once was in the NBA. The new way to do this is these guys stay in their cities because there's so much money there and it makes so much financial sense for them to sign with their existing team. So they're going to sign that extension and then you trade them a year later or you have to wait. You trade him a year later and the guy gets his money and the team recoups some assets for him. So I think these types, because we've seen it, we've seen the Cavs give Utah the control of their draft for 5 years in a row. We've seen Houston. Who else?
The Nets. I mean, with
the
Phoenix.
Nets with Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. My only counter to that, though, is now with the second tax apron, you can only have so many of these guys on your roster, and these second and late round picks. If you're above that second, you can't sign buyout guys. You can't use the full mid-level exception. So to bring in multiple guys making that much money, I think it's going to be so hard. So the return on investment, I say return on investment, but return you're getting in a trade for those guys, I just don't ever think will be at the same level of 2 young guys and 5 or 6 picks. I just think all the returns are going to be diminished to fit into that second apron kind of threshold.
When the new TV deal kicks in, I'll be curious to see. I mean, it's just going to be another landmine.
$1 gajillion.
Yeah. So, like, when you're talking second apron, I know we're kind of getting in the weeds a little bit on CBA for people who don't follow the NBA closely, but, like, Joe Lacob can pay any tax that's out there.
Fair.
Dan Gilbert can pay any tax that's out there. Jimmy Haslam and the Bucks can pay any tax that's out there. So there are Steve Ballmer. So there's a few teams that I think will, but right now, that's why I said earlier, I'm curious to see who's going to pay this second tax. But I would put the Celtics owners in that group too. They could pay the second tax. It's just a matter of like getting their bearings, I think, is what where I'm going with this. And what do the numbers really look like when the new money kicks in?
They're trying to figure out what the meta is. Like, okay, what is, like, all right, what's the, like, how does this thing, like, remember back in the day when people, when buyouts, not buyouts, but amnesty was out there, and people was just like, all right, a lot of these people that you gave big deals to, you could just say, oh, that doesn't count anymore. Like,
tax write-off.
Yeah, I think they'll figure out the way to do it. I think the big thing that I take away from this is, I don't think Donovan Mitchell is going to be here long term. I think a lot of people knew that. But if you're the Cavs, you keep him this year. You keep him next year. You hope you win a championship in those years. And if you do get to the finals and you do have to let him go or whatever the case may be, at least you went to the finals. Like, you know, you tried it, it didn't work, at least you got there, and then you got to tear it down a little bit and try to find out, or hopefully you got some people that are stepping up that can take that position, or you got some guys within that you're developing that can help you out, or go get a free agent that, you know, you may trade for somebody because you do have the cap space once Donovan Mitchell isn't here. So that's the way I look at it.
When you look at the Eastern Conference as a whole, I think you look at Milwaukee and Boston as the 2 top teams, right?
Yep.
After that, you can make an argument, and I'll do it right now if we want, but I think the Cavs are the 3rd best team on paper heading into this season in the East. And I don't think the gap between them and 1 and 2 is all that significant. I really don't. There's so many questions with Milwaukee. Chris Middleton is old, getting older, and continually hurt. Brook Lopez, at some point, that dude's been in the league forever. At some point, he can't still be a 43% shooter at 7 foot and the league's best rim protector. Boston, is Mazzulla a good head coach? Can Tatum and Jaylen Brown coexist, now that Brown is the highest paid player in the NBA, is he going to try to become the alpha dog on the court when in reality it should be Tatum's spot to be the alpha dog? Who's their point guard? How are they going to replace Marcus Smart? Is Porzingis better? Like, those two teams who we look at ahead of the Cavs, I actually think have more question marks entering the season than Cleveland does. They're just a little more proven. So the Cavs are right in that threshold to be a top-tier contender in the Eastern Conference. And when you are in that situation, a few things have to just break your way to make a deep playoff run. And if that happens, to what Jason said earlier, there's no reason Donovan Mitchell is going to be banging on Kobe Altman's door saying, I need out. You only bang and say, I need out when the situation is not good. And I'm not saying it doesn't mean he won't ask or that those discussions and that situation may not unfold that way. But there's also an alternate universe and a realistic chance. I say alternate, but I think a better than 50% chance the Cavs are in the Eastern Conference Finals this year. And they're going to have a conversation with Donovan saying, hey, we did what we could do to make you happy. If you don't want to be here, that's up to you. We can't make you stay. We'll help you find facilitate some sort of trade. But there's only so much the Cavs can do to get him to stay, and I think they've done all the right moves to set themselves up to be in that position.
Except for find a coach. Not playing.
I mean, for all we know, Donovan was banging on the door saying, hey, JB's the right guy. Keep JB.
There's pressure on everybody
Yeah.
in that organization,
We gonna
JB
see.
included.
Or
We gonna see.